Predator vs. Wolverine by Marvel Comics, Issue 1 is here. Is it worth reading? Let's find out. Hi everybody, and welcome to another review video, my dear friends. A surprise! I've got a surprise for you, but a welcome one. And 10 points for the first person who guesses whose line that is. I'm sure there'll be many of you. Now, today I'm reviewing, my dear friends, Predator vs. Wolverine, Issue 1. A Marvel comic book that came out just recently, and man, I have enjoyed this thoroughly. Now, before you start arguing about the modern state of the American comic book industry, believe me, this comic book is 100% worth reading. And why wouldn't it be? Putting it into right hands, I believe that Wolverine fighting a Yautja Predator monster is something that has been on the want list of many comic book fans in the entire universe. So this particular comic book was written by Benjamin Percy, and there have been actually a couple of artists that have illustrated it, among others. That's Ken Lashley and Greg Land. And also there were inks by Jay Lichtenstein and Andrea DeVito. And let me tell you, it starts with, and I'm not going to venture too much into spoilers, but there will most certainly be spoilers. So if you don't wish to have this comic book spoiled for you, leave, read it, and come back. So it is everything that you would like from a Wolverine versus a Predator comic book. And there is an added bonus, and this actually contains a story. And that story is shaping up to be good if you read the first issue, and it definitely intrigues you to read the second issue. If you compare it, for example, to the original and the more recent one, Batman vs. Spawn crossover, those stories there were not very much thought through, but quite honestly, we didn't buy Batman vs. Spawn for the story. We bought it for the fact that it's badass and for the artwork. Now, it spans about 100 years, this one. And it's really starts in medias res, as you would imagine from an action comic book. The Yautja Predator chasing Wolverine in Canada of the present day. And right away, you can see that Wolverine is in trouble. He has met his match. Now, he's not the hunter, he is the prey. And the issue about the art that I might theoretically have is that it's good, but it could use... Some of the pages could use better coloring. We will get to that. All the artists that have shared work on this particular issue are very competent indeed. And the line work, whether it was done by hand or on computer, is very, very good. If you compare it to most of what is being put out by the American comic book creators today, it is very good. It's not the best, but it's good. And I am including mainstream and independent scene. There have been a lot of independent comic books who have boasted about being much better than Marvel Comics. And if you look at them and you look at the artwork, it looks bland and boring and very simplistic, and it looks as if the artist did not put much work in it. If you look at this page, this shot of Wolverine's head, it looks very, very good. Of course, a lot of usage of the thermovision when we are looking at it from the point of view of the Predator. And here we've got the credits and those things that I've already talked about. And then we move back in time and we see young Wolverine. So as I said, it spans about 100 years. After the in medias res scene, we move back in time. We see Wolverine, who lives in the wilderness, and that's actually something that grasped my attention and held my heart for a considerable length of time after I finished reading the comic book, because this is what I imagine Wolverine to be like, even from the time when it was written by Chris Claremont, illustrated by Frank Miller, and so on and so forth. A man who is a loner, a man who enjoys solitude. Yes, he was in love with the Japanese lady whose name is escaping me now, and the entire comic book by Frank Miller and Chris Claremont was about his travel to Japan. But anyway, I do imagine Wolverine as a loner who is more of a really a lone wolf character rather than a member of the X-Men team. And here, those lines stuck with me for a long time after I finished reading this comic book. Now, he says, I never worried too much about the Sub-Zero winds or avalanches, the pissed off moose, the charging grizzlies. It's people who concerned me. People's why I used this cave as my safe. This was the edge of the map, and that's where folks go to escape trouble and make more. They always wanted something, money, land, sex, power, and they'd kill to get it. Maybe that's one of the reasons, maybe that's one of the reasons I really liked this comic book, because I can 100% sympathize and empathize with this. I will much rather go for a long walk into the forest than be among people who are not really, really worth it. Talking about one of the reasons, we go forward, and I'm going to skip a lot of pages so that I don't get a copyright strike. The gist of the matter is that Wolverine goes to a little town where he is approached by a man who's got work for him to save his son, because, apparently he is being apprehended by some thugs. And Wolverine says another line that I enjoyed and stuck with me for a long time. Maybe that's one of the reasons I said yes. He wanted his son back desperately. I've always been, and I'll always be, kind of raw and messed up when it comes to that old father and son thing. I am very much a family guy. I do believe that family is the most precious thing you have in your life. And seeing Wolverine cherishing the, even though he's a loner, but him cherishing the relationship between a father and son is not something that you would see very often in today's entertainment in 2023. So once again, kudos to Benjamin Percy. And then the action happens. We get to know that there has been somebody in the forest, which we can see over there, a very iconic scene from each and every single Predator movie and story in general. They think that the thugs did it, and more action happens. So Wolverine storms into the cabin where those thugs should be hiding. As you can see, he still has his bone claws. And then he realizes, oh, it wasn't the thugs who did it, it was the Predator. A couple of pages before that, we get to know that it was actually a kind of a trap, that the guy who hired Wolverine, he set it all up, and that he didn't have a son at all, and that he just hired those thugs to stop a train and steal from it so he can get a lot of money, but in the end everybody dies. And the only two who survive are Wolverine and the Predator. So a long fight sequence follows, which is 100% action-packed. There you can see a beautiful, beautiful shot of the Yautja Predator, which I think this particular image, it's clear that the artist used a some sort of picture or still from the movie Predator, the first one, I believe. And then they find some more. It's all badass. They've got both of them very, very good healing factors, so they are not as easily defeated. But suddenly, the Predator is being ravaged by a bear, and apparently he perishes. But he doesn't. He doesn't really. Then we move in time forward again. And we get to know that Wolverine is a part of a Team X, who is assigned to go to a jungle. And tell me, does that remind you of something? Yes, that's a clear nod to the first Predator movie. And there he gets to know that the Predator, whom he met when he was a young lad for the first time in the 1900s, did not die and didn't forget about him, but he brought reinforcements. And then there are more Yautja now, which are then going to be fighting Team X and Wolverine in the next issue. So it's actually very good, this story about this one Yautja remembering Wolverine as the ultimate enemy and both an ultimate predator and the ultimate prey that he will have to get eventually, because we know from the predator lore they never really hunt anybody who would not be able to fight back. So they are constantly looking for a stronger and a stronger and a stronger prey. And so his dedication to fight and defeat Wolverine lasted for 100 years, or over 100 years. And the story will continue in the next issue. So, yeah, to sum it all up, I did enjoy this issue. I did enjoy this comic book, both the writing by Benjamin Percy and the artwork of all the artists. That one thing that I would change or improve, that on certain pages, it's clear that the colorist could have done much better work than they did. And it was clear that certain pages, as far as the colors go, were rushed very much. And that too much of the art and too many details were left up to the colorist, which I don't really think is the way to go. But that's really my only gripe about it. It's an oversized comic book. It's not 22 pages. It's about 40 pages. And that I enjoyed even more. So, yeah, much better than ISOM, for example, that everybody's all crazy about today. So let me know in the comments down below what you think, if you're going to read it or not. And that will be all. Thank you very much for watching. And I'm out of here.